Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast, episode 20, and there's nothing that's funny about your dog running away. And in today's show, we're going to be talking about 6 ways to teach your dog not to come when called. And these are some common mistakes that you might be making if you're working under recall. The recall is without question the life-saving command. And there's lots and lots and lots of examples that we've had from students saying, this event happened, I called come and my dog ran back. Thank goodness we'd worked on our recall command.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know what is going to happen. You might drop the leash. Your dog might run out the front door. I mean, even if you plan to never allow your dog off leash, stuff happens where we need to be able to have them be responsive to keep them safe.
Yeah. Maybe you haven't purchased our McCann Dogs training equipment, collar, leash, etc., and you just have a cheaper version of a leash or a collar, and it breaks, it pops loose. Actually, we had a student who had a Westie in our grade 1 class, and I think either she came to you, Shannon, or she came to our office and said this great story, but she wasn't really paying attention, and she was I forget what she had on the dog. She had a collar that we didn't necessarily agree with. I think we might have been whatever it wasn't the right equipment, but she was standing at the corner of a busy intersection, and the dog slipped out of its collar. Dear. It was an older student, and she was, just distracted and wasn't really paying close attention. And when she turned, her dog was several feet away from her. And this is a dog that's, I think it might have been like week 3 or 4 of her grade 1 class, so her initial training, and she called come, and the dog came back.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because of sort of how we front load the value in the recall command. But there are so many different circumstances where you want that. I've talked several times about the event I had with Deegan when I was in training in grade 1 out here at the McCann Dogs property, and a bunny ran by and I called her. She came back. I was just I was ecstatic that I got the turn that I did. But it is a crucial skill, and it's one of those things. You hope you never have to use it, but boy, are you glad when you have that skill with your dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is the one that will allow you not only to keep your dog safe, but it'll allow you to confidently take the leash off and enjoy some free time with your dog not having to be tethered to a leash. So worthwhile teaching it. Now,
in saying that, having the skill is one thing, but having the skill or beginning training the skill and then accidentally untraining it or, training the opposite is pretty common. There's some mistakes that people make fairly regularly that, they just sort of water down the value of that come command. And if there's something that we know, it's that, using that word, meaning the same thing, having the same level of importance that the dog must turn and come back to you each and every time is critical.
You bet.
So let's talk about the first thing that people do that waters down their recall command.
Yeah, and this one should be the most obvious on everybody's minds. Call your dog to come without training them first. And this might seem like a surprise to some people. They do not come understanding any of these basic skills. They don't speak a language. They have a completely different way of communicating. They are completely different creatures, and they have things on their mind that are completely different from what we would expect them to have on their mind. They're thinking about eating grubs out of the ground and sniffing other dogs' pee and all sorts of things that we're not thinking about, that are not interfering with our minds and our thinking process. But basically, we can't expect our dogs to leave those things and be motivated to come running back to us, or leave the squirrel in full chase and come running back to us. If you remember, however many years ago, the Fenton videos that got parodied all over the place. That dog,
Fenton.
That dog needed more training first before he was allowed to be off leash. And if your dog is chasing a herd of wild antelope or deer, you're that was such a great video. It's so fun. Anyways, not good for poor Fenton, or poor Fenton's owner, but at any rate, we definitely want to make sure that if we let our dogs off leash, it is knowing that we have put in the time and put in the effort to teach them what the word come means.
I think of some students who will use it all the time, even when the dog's in close proximity. Yeah. And I think it's just sort of the default word to mean, get over toward me or get in at my side. And I mean, people just overuse it so much. And we actually don't use the word at all
Yeah.
in our puppy training. It just doesn't exist. It's not a word we use. We have a throwaway word,
Yeah.
that we use. It's kind of like an informal recall command so that we don't ever accidentally use it in the wrong situation.
Yeah, you bet. And I actually we use here for our very informal recall command. And I actually use that through my dog's entire lives. I rely on the response to name and the here command for their like general listening in day-to-day life. When I yell come, that is the life-saving one. That is my dog is running out towards the road. That is there's another dog that's coming and I really want to get my dog out of there. That's the one where I am adamantly enforcing that my dog needs to respond to the come command 100% of the time on the first command every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd mentioned the Fenton videos, which I hope if you're a dog owner, you've seen those because they're pretty entertaining. And you can feel for the dog owner because he's so frustrated that
absolutely.
Fenton isn't listening. But in that situation, Fenton didn't have a chance to make the right choice.
Right.
And that's another mistake that people make is they call their dog, use that come command when the dog doesn't have a chance to get it right.
Yeah, you bet. When you are in training, and your dog should always be under some sort of physical control. Until you know you can rely on the verbal control, you should always make sure that you are responsibly able to keep your dog safe. And that means having physical control of them. Taking that leash off before they have a good recall trained really should not be an option. There are far too many things that might go wrong. When you're in the training process and you're teaching your dog how to respond to that come command, you want to make sure that you are set up so that the dog can be successful. So you're not going to start your come command training out in the real world in a busy park where there's other dogs and squirrels and any chance of your dog being, waylaid en route to you. I start my recall in the hallway. We actually talked about the restraint recall a few episodes ago. So if you go back in the podcast, we talked about restraint recall, starting your dog's engine. And that's the first part of the recall. And we basically build a reliable response to that come command by having our dogs drive and get excited about it and basically be a little bit of a coiled spring.
Yep.
And then they get massive reinforcement for running to us. Now, what we want to do when we're first teaching that is take away every other option. So when I start my recall training, I start in the hallway of my house. There's nowhere else for my dog to go. And then I'll move to other areas of the house and I'll keep reinforcing those lessons, keep building their desire to get to me and to hear that come command and know that it means wonderful things are happening at me. And then I will start to add further distractions. So tougher things. I'll start to go outdoors. I'll start to add more distractions to the environment. Or now I might go to the busy park and I might be practicing my recall with lots of other distractions going on. But I want to make sure that I don't put that in reverse. I don't want to put my dog in a situation where he can't possibly get it right because he's just too overfaced.
And you're not making that decision. You talked about at some point you might take it outside, take it into your yard. And you're not making that decision based on the fact that you've been working restraint recalls in the house for 2 weeks. You're making that decision because you're seeing the results that you want. You're seeing a focused dog who's driving toward you.
I love that point because people always ask, how long does it take? How long does it take? How long does it take? And unfortunately, I wish I could answer that question for people because it would make their lives so much easier hearing a definitive answer, but there isn't one. Every dog is different. I mean, our grade 1 is a 9-week obedience program. Our life skills program online is an 8-week obedience program. But I'll tell you for a fact, that's the teaching period. Yeah. That is where you're starting your recall from start. And then you're getting to the point where you've got a reliable off-leash recall, but now you need to head out and you need to keep proofing because there's going to be tough distractions that your dogs have to contend with in their life. And you want to make sure that you've gotten as close to those distractions in training as you possibly can so that in real world, your dog has experience listening and they understand how to listen. It's so, so important.
Also, that's why we teach you. We don't teach your dog.
Absolutely.
When you come to us, we're teaching you how to do this training and teaching you what to do when it doesn't go right.
Yeah.
More than we're teaching the dog. Dog training is easy. It's people training to train their dogs. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned that you had a great reward when you're talking about, or you were rewarding your dog when they got to you. Something really common, I think, that people do. They'll do this not just with the recall, they'll do it with all kinds of skills, but they'll ask their dog to do something and then the dog does it. And then they just the human disengages from the dog because they got the result they wanted. But when you're in that training phase, ultimately you can randomize the rewards. But when you're in that training phase, you need to make sure that your dog knows that every time they work, they do
Yeah.
something that you want, that there's something in it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And make it worth their while. You know, as humans, we tend to look for the end goal far too quickly. And a lot of the times people are already asking, when do I wean off food, when they've just started the program? And it's not for a while yet. You know, you need to build value for the behaviors themselves. You need your dog to love coming when they're called before you can take away the motivator that creates the situation where they come when they're called. If you take it away too early, the behavior will start to fall apart before it's even had a solid foundation built.
For sure. I mean, it's just so important. And again, you know, we use a lot of food in the beginning. We use a lot of food to reinforce for the dog that, you know, it's worth it to listen. It's worth it to put in some effort. And our objective is to get to a point where we don't need the food, but we'll still bring it back in occasionally. We'll still, you know, reinforce maybe with some toy play, whatever your dog likes. It's really important that you do make, you know, let your dog know that, and then maybe you have a dog who had a pretty good come command and now it's starting to slow down. You know, that's not that uncommon because, you know, for a whole host of reasons. But what you can do is refresh those skills for your dog by bringing back some of the training and making sure you're rewarding when that dog comes in, making it worth their while.
Yeah, you bet. And that's the point where I double down on my efforts. You know, I absolutely love the proofing phase of things. I love working through and watching the, you know, the little wheels start turning and the little light bulbs start coming on and the dog starts gaining this confidence because they know that the skill that I'm asking them to do, even though I'm bouncing a tennis ball as I'm asking my dog to sit, he knows that the job is to sit. And the way he gets the tennis ball is by sitting when he's asked to sit. If he does anything else, he's not going to get that reward. You know, so that's a great thing. In my perspective, I absolutely love those moments where he's like, I get this. You know what? You can't throw me off. You can't make me break the sit by bouncing that tennis ball. Stop being so silly.
Right. Yeah. What do you think Fenton's owner did once he got hold of Fenton? Once he'd finally reclaimed control of Fenton, what do you think he did?
Oh, I'm not so sure, but he might have gotten a bit angry. He might have gotten upset with Fenton. He was pretty upset in that video. There was some obscenity used. Yeah.
If you're a dog owner at home, what have you done when your dog has done the opposite of what you wanted? When they haven't been listening and they finally came back, they finally came in the house. You know, they finally started listening again. What did you do? Because this can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Or when you're upset and your ego is a little bit flattened because people just saw your dog ignore you when they shouldn't, etc. We need to be so careful at this point, you know, and I have said to people before, you need to be happy with that dog at that point because it's going to be so much harder the next time if you are angry with that dog. When you finally catch up to them after, you know, running through the field and yelling Fenton and you finally catch Fenton, if at that point you are angry with Fenton, Fenton is going to make it much harder for you to catch him next time because it's not pleasant when you get around. You know, in his mind, he's having a wonderful time. He's chasing these. I can't remember quite what they were. I don't remember. I think it was like the Star Wars parody one. I'm way off.
TIE fighters then. In that case. I don't remember.
Who knows? But yeah, what we need to do at that point is clench our teeth and walk the dog back somewhere and
I'm so
take
happy
a moment.
You're back.
Take a moment, take a breather. Relax a little bit and then put your training gloves back on and get back in the ring with it and recognize the mistakes that you made, you know, whether it was allowing Fenton off leash to begin with or allowing Fenton off leash in a situation where he was way overfaced by that distraction. You know, maybe it was a situation where you opened the door at the park in the parking lot to go and clip on the leash and the dog snuck out the door. You know, maybe it doesn't even have to do with the recall itself. I mean, the fact that the dog didn't come makes it an issue, but maybe you need to work on your skills at the car so that your dog has manners coming out of the car at the park. So
I really like that approach.
You can take your time putting on the leash and taking hold of the collar. You can practice like quickly getting the dog back in the car should you need to, etc. Maybe that's the point you need to focus on before even thinking about the recall part is the listening at the car.
This is the difference between someone who's going to see success quickly and someone who's going to struggle with their dog wanting to listen, you know, because there's going to be all sorts of challenging things and frustrating things that happen in your dog training. And when you can kind of compartmentalize that and set it aside and then complete successfully a task, and then, you know, in whatever, you know, in a couple of hours, think back on that frustrating moment. You know, these are if you're able to do that, you're gonna expedite that dog's listening skills. That dog's gonna more quickly know that you are someone who they want to listen to. You can get frustrated at the situation, but you shouldn't get frustrated at your dog, because when they make those mistakes, they're as much your mistakes as they are theirs.
Yeah, you bet. And people will ask about, the order of doing things when they get to the park, as an example, or when they're doing a training session or going to visit. A lot of people are asking about visits now. Now that things are opening up again, hopefully in your area as well through COVID. We're going out and seeing family and friends again. We're having guests over in the house again. And people are wondering about the order of doing those things. When I go out with my dogs, I make sure that when I first arrive wherever I am, I give them a moment to recognize that this is a situation that they have to listen in as well. So I might open up the car, have them just relax in the crate for a minute while I get myself organized. I want to make sure that I'm ready for whatever happens when I let the dog out of the car. I'm going to make sure that I practice my manners, letting them out of the car there, even if they're excited to be at the park. I recognize that it's exciting to get to the park. I like getting to the park to play with my dog too.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that it goes as well as it can, and that energy level is not going through the roof as I let my dog out. Because if I start my training session, regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's come or whether it's just wandering around the park, practicing let's go or practicing response to name, I need to make sure my dog is in listening mode. And practicing that as a habit means that after 20 times of letting my dog out of the car and practicing listening skills first, rather than letting them go and sniff first to get used to the area, my dog on the 20th time jumps out of the car and immediately looks to me, what are we doing? And I've now created a habit that's going to follow through for the rest of his life. So what you do when you first get there is a really, really important thing. And I wouldn't let my dog get there and wander around and look at everything first. I would get there, call him out of the car, maybe work a sit, maybe work some attention, get in a few rewards, let him know that I'm a great thing to focus on right here. And I might practice for 5 minutes at the car before I even venture into the park. All of those things, how I set the scene is going to set my training session.
These are the kinds of tips that are going to make you a better trainer for your dog. These are the kinds of things that are going to, really put you in a position where you're more likely to be successful. I think about the other thing that sort of sprung to mind as you were talking about that is when you're working some of these skills that are in motion versus some of these stationary skills. There's like 35 things that can go wrong when you're walking on leash in your
Only
recalls.
35?
Yeah, or more. But there are much less things. There are fewer things that can go wrong when you're working on stationary skills. Maybe your environment changes, your dog makes the wrong choice, but it's a little bit more focused, and your timing's going to be better. So starting with some of these skills allows you to be successful as well. Get your training chops again. This is in terms of learning, not just dog training. In terms of learning, it's like warming up to play a sport. You don't go out and run around all of the bases at first. You stretch, you do some stretching. You get some motion, you get that arm loosened up. And doing some of those exercises is great for the listening skills of your dog, but it gets your brain in the right sort of mindset as well. So I really like that idea. There are so many things that can be helped with a great sit stay. We talk about this a lot. You bet. And what you'll see when you're working on some of these stationary skills, the secret value that's there. If you have a dog, if you teach them to have a rock solid stationary skill like a sit stay, you're going to see all of your other skills get a little bit better.
Yeah, you bet. And they're definitely not as fun to practice as some of our other skills, but they are so important. And just like you said, that ability to just calm and focus, and that ability for us to call on that calm and focus from our dogs is so important. And if you can practice the transition from excitement to calm, and excitement to calm, and excitement to calm, and calm to exciting as well, you can get your dog to a point where they have listening ears in the excited state as well. So we have stays in our program, not because they're convenient or traditionally used anymore these days. I mean,
probably my least used skill.
Yeah. Outside of an obedience ring, I can't think of a time where I actually use a stay as a formal skill. I mean, for me, sit means sit, and my casual skills are implied, and the expectation is that they hold the sit until they're released. But stays are still crucial. And I spend a lot of time training them
Yeah.
because it helps teach dogs emotional control. It gives me an opportunity to start the things like squirrel work, right? So if I want my dog to come when they're called, when they're chasing a squirrel, I need to have trained when the excitement is at that point as well. And I don't have squirrels. I don't have control of squirrels.
Right. Yeah.
So we use other methods.
So I pay some local squirrels.
Exactly.
They all stand together and then, guys, don't move.
Yeah, buy big bags of peanuts and, hope for the best. Yeah. So what we do is we use other things that we can simulate that same excited motion with. So I'll use flirt poles. I use toys attached to lines a lot. And teaching the stay and using those things and having my dog, the expectation be that they hold that sit position while I run by dragging this toy that looks like a squirrel, or while I have somebody else do that and they get a reward for holding. And that patterned behavior of holding position, watching excitement, ignoring excitement, learning to contend with excitement becomes a situation where my dog's brain now can turn on. I mean, if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, basically when a dog is chasing prey, they're going to block everything else out. It's what they're going to do in order to focus in on getting dinner and feeding themselves and continuing to stay alive. So we need to break through that, and we need to teach them how to turn their ears on when they're chasing that squirrel. The stay is an amazing way to start that training. And then you can add motion into it. Once they understand how to hold the stay for all of those things, you can start to ask them to sit while they're in motion and chasing that thing, or ask them to stop their motion, etc., and get that practice in with listening brain.
Something Euchre, if you've seen, we have a YouTube series on puppy Euchre that was actually Kale's brother's dog, and but we had her, for the first few weeks, we did some tutorial videos with her and created some learning content. But her one of her strongest skills was the lie down.
Okay,
and it would almost reset her brain sometimes. So it was nice to be able to have a default behavior where we'd ask her to do something, lie down. It was that thing. And it would just slow things down for her a little bit. If we saw she was getting a little bit too excited, just a little bit too much. And we love that enthusiasm, but we need to make sure that it's controlled, that it is thoughtful, that she's exercising it in the right way. And similar to the stay, our default behavior was a lie down. It was really, really helpful for that. But teaching the stay isn't that much fun for the owner or for the dog. I mean, we try to make it fun for the dog and by adding all these challenges, but we need to be mindful of what's enjoyable, especially when it comes to the recall, because if you're only calling your dog to come back because you're going to end their fun, it's going to devalue that word.
Yeah, absolutely. And this happens a lot with older dogs. So basically we do all this fun work training the recall, and then people tend to think that the job is done at a set point. And it's not. You still need to go back and you need to keep training and keep things fresh. And you need to make sure that your dog listens to life on a day-to-day basis. And when they start to slip in that respect, you need to up your training game again. That doesn't mean to say you need to spend your whole life training with your dog, but you need to be ready to jump in and sort of reroute the rules again when behaviors start to slip. And one of the things that people tend to do once they think they've gotten to the point where the recall is trained is they stop rewarding it. Yeah. And they get to a point where they call their dogs to come, and then they get in the car and they go home. Yeah. They call their dogs to come, and the fun ends with the play session with the other dogs. They call their dogs to come, the sniffing session ends, and they have to continue in heel position. So all of these situations, the dog has been taken away from very reinforcing things and put into a scenario that's not very reinforcing, or that might be the negative in the situation. Leaving the dog park, getting in the car to go home is probably not a very appealing thing to a dog in the middle of play. And if we start to chain those events together, the dog starts to get wise. So they're going to get to the point where they say, you know what, you call me to come and my reward is to get in the car and the fun ends and I have to go home. I'm not coming. Yeah. And you might trick that dog for a while by pretending to get in the car and pretending to drive away without, or whatever the case may be. I've heard so many funny stories about how people are willing to trick their dogs when the recall is not quite working.
That is hilarious.
And in the moment, do what you have to do to keep your dog safe. Sure. But do not rely on that as a training event. And if you have to do it once, you need to put your dog back on long line, and you need to go back and you need to retrain the recall, because repeating that is only going to make your scenario worse and make your dog's recall weaker and weaker. So we want to make sure that sometimes if you're a park person and you call your dog from the park, They get to you and you give them 2 or 3 little pieces of cheese and then tell them, okay, go sniff, and send them off to go and party in the park again. That is a much nicer message for the dog than calling them, getting in the car, and going home.
Yeah.
So now you have added value to a situation where your dog said, oh, that was a win-win. I got to come and get a cookie that I really, really liked. It was a really nice reward. And then I got to go back out and sniff again, or go back out and play with my friends again, or whatever the case may be. So we want to make sure we're not only calling them when the play session is over, when the fun is about to end, when we're taking their freedom away. We need to make sure that we call them and reinforce that good response as well.
I'd occasionally work on the recall early in the training session if I were in a new environment, especially when we're talking about the park. I'd often go to the baseball diamonds because I could close off all the gates, and you know, I had an opportunity to let the dog drag a long line. But it also takes that edge off. You know, you work on some of those recall skills, and the dog's being a little bit more mindful in 10 minutes when you go to practice your walking on leash skill, or you go to practice some other skill. You know, it's just such a great way to burn off energy. The other thing I was thinking about as you're talking about it is maybe when you're reinforcing that hard drive back, sometimes it's a good idea to switch up that reward to something like a tug toy. You know, that can be a great reinforcer for dogs and really elevate that you know, their excitement and their intensity on coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the trade-off. When we get to the trained dog point, what we want to do is we want to have reward systems that are not necessarily food. Food is an easy currency to go to. We talk about that all the time, but we don't want to have to rely on it forever. So by the time you get to the point where you are reinforcing your dog for the rest of the time, you know, the rest of their life, you can have reward systems in place that your dog loves that are not food.
Yeah.
And, you know, by that time, you know your dog. And for Ned, I have water, I have butt scratches. He's getting to the point where a good boy and a big tap on the side will make him shudder and happy, and his tail starts wagging. But that's been, you know, that's been time and development. I've associated those things with rewards over time. He's 4 now, so he's getting to the point where that, you know, pat on the side is good enough for him. But other times I want to make sure that I make a bigger impact. So I'll have a toy with me, or I'll break out a game without a toy. You know, we've developed play style, of course, that we have mutual play that I'll call playtime, and he knows exactly what to do, and I know exactly what to do for us to have a great engagement and have fun. And then the game ends at that point with my settle and sit command, and we continue on with life at that stage. So having other reward systems in place just allows you to tell your dog they're absolutely brilliant. It allows you to keep the value high, but without necessarily having to rely on food.
Maybe you have a food motivated dog and you think to yourself, you know, my dog just isn't that into toys. Well, we actually have some signature products, our McCann.store. You can go over there and get things like our food tug, our retrieve trainer. We also have the fuzzy ball tug, which people really seem to love. The dogs really love it too. I actually had one of our instructors who was in agility class come over and say, Ken, my dog loves this thing. Like, she's not super into toys, but she loves the fuzzy ball tug. But if you have a dog that's really food motivated, our treat training pouch, you know, it's on a tug line, might be perfect for your dog. So make sure you check those out at McCanndogs.store. We talked a little bit about you know, dog in training. Certainly a dog that has, you know, we're not absolutely certain that the dog's going to be going to respond the way we want, so we're going to train through it. But this also applies to dogs who have the skill, and it's been, you know, a few months since you worked on the recall command. You know, the recall is something that over time may, for your dog, start to lose its effectiveness, lose its potency. And this is something we'll practice with our dogs every once in a while, just for fun.
You bet. Absolutely. Skills that are not practiced will fade. That's just a given. So we need to put on our training belt every once in a while, and we need to get out there and actually practice the skills that are important in our day-to-day life. It's also really important that you make your dog listen in the day-to-day life as well. So if you let them ignore you all the time in the backyard, and then you go to the park and expect them to listen there, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. So I know what you were driving at, though, is calling your dog and allowing them to ignore you once they're at that, you know, that mode where you've given them some freedom and you're relying on those skills as part of your day-to-day life to get them focused and get them back with you. If you call them and they don't respond, you need to make it happen. And that is where dog trainers are different in what we do, because we know that one time is not the end of it. We know with certainty that if it's happened once, it's going to happen again, and probably multiple times. So it only ever happens once before we step right back into training mode, take the step back, break the behavior down, go back to where we need to in order to build it back up. And while that's happening, we remove the opportunity to rehearse the wrong behavior as well. So if my dog ignored me once, that would be the only time he ignored me. I would go back to training or back to something that's going to reinforce that skill enough that it starts to loop back to being reliable again.
Yeah, and this isn't an exclusive. This isn't exclusive to recalls, guys. This is for
everything,
all of your skills. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be the person who's making it easier for your dog to make the wrong choices. And constantly repeating yourself without doing anything to affect change is a really easy way to do that.
Yeah.
Also reinforcing the fact that if you don't use it, you'll lose it, as we talked about a little bit earlier. So,
without question.
Now, I want to thank you guys for joining us here on the podcast. I think the recall is such an important skill. I'm glad you took the time to listen to this episode. But if you need some specific advice that's specific to your dog or your training situation, we have 2 online training programs for you. And our Life Skills program is for dogs 5 months and older. And our Puppy Essentials program is for dogs under 5 months, where we don't necessarily work on the come command, but we talk about that informal recall command and set your dog up to be a better learner, so that when you get into life skills, when you get into some of these much more challenging training situations for your adult dog with new environments and challenges, that your dog understands how to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can learn more quickly. So make sure you check out the link in the description below for that. Now, if this is your first time listening to us here on our podcast channel, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button. We're happy to have you here. We publish content every single week to hang out with you and to hope to give you a dog, help you to have a dog that loves to listen. And we love to sit down and have these conversations, because it's fun for us to chat about it. In our world, because we're around dog trainers all the time, these kinds of conversations come up so often. And it's nice to, communicate that with maybe a new dog owner who this is the first time they had ever even thought about something like this. But for us, this is kind of daily conversation with certain students and certain skills and certain things that we're working on. So it's fun to just sort of chat about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with that, I want to thank you guys for listening. And on that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Shannon.
Happy training, guys. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the McCann Dogs podcast. And if you'd like some more training resources, be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at McCann Dogs. And if you'd like to train with us online, be sure to check out the show notes below for our My Dog Can online training program, where we know in just a few weeks your dog will become a well-behaved family member. Until then, happy training.